Chuck.
Hi, Chuck. How are y'all?
Is that a good sign or a bad sign? He wants to dispense with the formalities.
Well,
He usually sits on this side of the table, that's all.
so Chuck, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. We're glad you agreed to do this. Thank you very much. We're going to break a little bit from our system of questions. They're not really appropriate for people who have already been serving. So I think what we'll do is more of a kind of a round table with the council, and Councilmember Stallman's on his way, so
Okay.
traffic gets difficult this time of evening. So wanted to give you an opportunity to, I think, talk to us real briefly about why it is that you want to be
Reappointed? Okay.
reappointed.
Thank you. I'd be happy to do that. The council originally appointed me to the Historic Preservation Board in 2008. And at the time when I applied for the boards and commissions, I indicated some areas of interest, but really left it open to the council for where it was that you felt the skills that I had, if you wanted to use those, would fit. And you appointed me to the Historic Preservation Board, and that has been a very fun role for me. In that role, I've gotten to know Phil and Peggy and Bruce Stallman and now Jerry as the council liaisons, and that's been a lot of fun. And I really appreciated the chance to get to work on the stewardship of places. And a couple of weeks ago, when you all had the first study session regarding the pending ordinance changes, one of the things that I was thinking about that night was how grateful that I am to live in a community that has a group of elected leaders that do place importance on stewardship of places. I think it's very important to link our past with today and the future. And again, not to live in the past, but to link the past. And I think the vibrancy of the downtown area is a testament to that vision. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully being reappointed and being able to be a part of continuing some of that legacy. A couple of things that in particular intrigue me about reappointment. I think that the historic preservation work has coupled with a very active business community and created a very vibrant economic engine downtown. Some recent statistics and sales tax numbers that I've seen show that the downtown area has been a real bright spot in terms of healthy economic growth. And I think that the historic preservation has played a role in that. I think that the attention to creating that sense of space has been very fruitful and continues. And, you know, it's evidenced by the tavern coming in and investing a very significant amount of money into our downtown, and hopefully that'll continue. My hope is that we can extend some of that same energy both to the south. I think that Arapahoe Community College is an incredible asset in our community that I'd like to figure out how to get more of those 20,000 students out of the parking lots and into the businesses that cater to those folks, as opposed to having them just get back in their vehicles and head on back to wherever they came from. And then also I think with the, we're really going to begin to see some opportunities really arising out of the light rail station. I personally think that some of the world economic forces in terms of energy and gas prices are going to make things like the Nevada Place apartments more and more intriguing to people. And I look forward to seeing Littleton respond to those demographic changes. I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to pontificate. I could lecture if you would like me to. You let me know.
Council, does anybody have a question? Jim?
Well, I'll start off, Chuck. I have said before that I really would like to see the Main Street Historic District be expanded to make like the northern boundary, the south side of of powers and include both sides of Alamo. And it could still be called the Main Street Historic District, but it does allow some of those older buildings that are on the side streets to become part of the historic district. And I guess the question I've got is, what other types of incentives could we offer to try to encourage people to join the historic district?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had a magic wand and really knew what the answer to that was.
I ask you because I don't know.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
searching.
Yeah, Jim, I think it's the right question. I think the audience for that really is the downtown businesses in terms of what it is that they need. I think that, because I really don't, I don't know. I don't own a business downtown. So I don't know what those incentive pieces would look like in order to drive more bodies through their doors. Mm-hmm. But I bet those business owners have thought a lot about that and would be able to help provide some direction there. I think that the grant program, the Main Street grant program, has been incredibly successful, again, at creating that sense of place. And I don't know if it's as simple as expanding the people that may be eligible for that, or if it is the incentives of creating improved walkways and lighting so that it's not as scary to walk from Main Street to Church Street. I don't know.
We
I think
cut
there's a lot
out,
of different options.
a few years ago, we cut that grant program in half, and if we get to the point where budget allows, I think that would probably be one of the considerations the council will give again to bringing that back up to where it was before, and I think that might be one way to help. But I'm searching for the same thing. How do you incentivize people to do that?
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd really thought about was trying to get some of the other taxing entities and see if they'd give tax breaks to those people who joined, and the biggest one being the school district.
That's intriguing.
It's a long conversation.
Bruce?
Go ahead. Chuck, dynamics of the Historic Preservation Board are about to change with certainly Steve's departure and Kevin's departure now as being term limited. And so some of the dynamics with the absence of long-tenured and architects that have been with the Historic Preservation Board. What do you see as some of the challenges recognizing hey, there's going to be some folks that have provided some technical expertise that aren't there?
I think to some degree that will be a challenge. The legacy and the history that Kevin Koenig had in the room will certainly be missed. Paul Kastner, who was appointed by the council just within the last couple of years, is also a practicing historic preservation architect, and so his expertise, I think, and his role on the board will become more important. I'm hoping that within the group of other folks that you all interviewed, that there's someone else that really does have some specific historic expertise, historic preservation expertise, either as an architect or a historic preservationist, because that would be really nice to have. And I also think that there is a real opportunity as well to take the change in the dynamics and go back and revisit some relationships that I think in the last couple of years have probably been challenged on a couple of occasions, and to try and rebuild a little bit some of the relationships between the board and particularly some of the downtown businesses. And so that's a good opportunity.
Talking about your own experience, though, too, you've been a tenured town manager, city manager in the past, and certainly there you have the opportunity to have experienced turnover among key staff, I'm sure. Maybe you could talk about your own experiences in dealing with turnover of tenured folks or technical folks.
Certainly those folks that have been instrumental and been driving heartbeats to organizations are lost, and you miss having those folks around. And the good news is that they're a phone call and an email away. in terms of a resource. And then it's really just an opportunity to continue the legacy with new energy. So we're certainly going to miss Kevin. I'm going to miss Steve, and I think I'm excited about some of the things that are ahead of the Historic Preservation Board. I'm excited about the ordinance changes that are coming. I think that's going to work better for staff here. I think it's going to work better for the downtown businesses who maybe have had some uncertainty in terms of how things are going to work, and it'll mitigate some of those risk factors.
Bruce?
Just in the interest of full disclosure, I spent part of this morning with Chuck interviewing him as part of my responsibility on the task force that's looking into boards and commissions. So I did spend some time today talking, not particularly at all about his reappointment, but I do want to point out that he is the vice chair of the Historic Preservation Board at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I do.
Gary?
Currently, you're serving on the HPB board. If you have a different opinion than the rest of the Historic Preservation Board, are you willing to voice that opinion? And if so, how would you go about doing that?
I am. I've always been a believer that always having consensus is not always a good thing. I think that you can have constructive tension, and even at times a good row and a dissenting vote is good for the population, as long as it's more important for people to know that it's important to understand where folks are coming from, and recognizing where folks are coming from is sometimes more important than agreeing with where they're at. I would have no problem dissenting on an issue. I was actually pleased last week in a vote with the Historic Preservation Board. An issue moved forward on a 5-2 vote, and I was very pleased that two people had the courage and fortitude to say, no, I don't agree with that, and that's a good thing.
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Hmm?
Let me just finish writing this. How do you see the Historic Preservation Board's relationship and role and interfacing and interactions with council? How do you see the two bodies working together, and how the two organizations have their sets of marching orders, and how do those parallel and cross over and work together?
But I think broadly, as a board and commission structure, the Historic Preservation Board being specifically charged with the stewardship of places, it's nice to have one particular group of folks that you can go out and have trained and educated who have the specific knowledge and expertise to be preservationists within the community. I think in addition to being an advisory board, I also think of the Historic Preservation Board as fairly active as an advocate board, and that they really are pursuing historic preservation. And at times, that can lead to some tension. And I'll throw specifically a recent example of an automatic teller machine on a downtown business that the Historic Preservation Board voted not to have, which I think from a historic preservation standpoint was really a good decision. And then I was really pleased personally that council overturned that decision, because from a global policy perspective, there was more benefit that stood from that addition than there was detraction. And I think that's a good example of constructive tension and people recognizing that there are different roles. You as a council have a different role than the Historic Preservation Board members do. And at times when you're looking at some of the decisions that we might have and think that we're wild-eyed, wild-haired preservationists, that's a good thing. That's why you tapped us on the shoulder to do the job that we're doing. And maybe from time to time, there may need to be some reining in so that it doesn't put the council in any type of a difficult position politically within the community. I want to avoid that. But I think that our job is to be out there and really advocate for that historic preservation and stewardship. One piece that I'm looking forward to is the opportunity for more discourse with the council and more communication, and I think that that will come. So I'm very pleased that the Board and Commission review that you all are doing is very exciting, and I'm glad to see that happening. I was very pleased to get to interview tonight. I think that was a good decision for you all. You all have to run for re-election after 4 years. This is kind of my run for re-election to some degree. So I think that's fair.
I did
Thank
want
you.
to comment now that he said something.
Okay. And briefly, Bruce, do you have a question, Jay? You can settle in while Peggy asks hers. But
Go ahead, yeah, sure, I'll
This is
catch up.
it's
Thanks.
an editorial comment in part. And I appreciate that you see that council might have a different perspective than you all on certain issues. And I appreciate that you appreciate that. But on the example you gave, although some people commented on the economic advantage of putting that ATM in, we were in a quasi-judicial role of looking at the criteria that the code had of whether or not that could or should have been allowed, given what the code said. So it's in case anybody's watching, I just want to emphasize that piece of it. It certainly seems to have added lots of economic vitality, having that machine there with the new place. But and that's one of the reasons we're looking at trying to clarify the code a little bit, so we don't wind up when we're in our judicial role, right?
Absolutely. It's a great clarification.
do you have a question, or?
Yeah, without having heard the conversation, and maybe this has already been covered, talk a little bit, Chuck. You've been on for, what, 3 years?
That's correct.
And with HPB in particular, there's the dynamic between the folks who are strong advocates for the architectural orientation of historic preservation when it comes to I don't want to use the phrase really isn't, it's not the purity of the thing, but I think you understand, and I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts just in terms of the balance between historic preservation's a noble attribute or noble undertaking in terms of preserving something that benefits the whole community. And yet we have struggled for years with this, issue of the property rights of an individual versus the desires of the community for this activity. Talk a little bit about what you've sort of learned during your tenure on the board in terms of how the pendulum swings back and forth between those two things in your mind.
Wow, that's a good question, Bruce, and probably could be a dissertation or two probably in there. I'm thinking.
Indeed.
I think that a little earlier we talked about the historic board composition, the historic preservation board composition, and in the last 6 months, and just eminently losing a couple folks due to term limits and other reasons who were incredibly knowledgeable and strong in terms of that architectural advocacy. And I think that a lot of the vision and the skills that they brought to the Historic Preservation Board really have created this incredible downtown. There's an incredible strong vision, and you need people who have that incredible vision to move items forward, and I think that that has happened. I think that the pendulum may swing just a little bit in the next few years. A lot of perhaps the facade improvements, the bar has been set, and the wheel is really in motion, and I think that additional changes that you're going to see in facades downtown will match what's existing. Other new construction, if it happens, will match the standard, again, that was set by new buildings that have been built on Main Street, and hopefully that can get expanded into other areas, moving particularly south. And I think the balance between the private property rights and the vision for where you want things to go as a community is always going to be a struggle. And I guess if it wasn't easy, everybody would do it. But Littleton has an incredible downtown, and anybody in the metropolitan area is aware of that fact. And if you ask anybody anywhere what they think of Littleton, they will tell you, I love your downtown. And so that vision and that pendulum swing has served us well. Thanks.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate you coming in. Thank you for your years of service on the
Thank
on
you.
the board. We appreciate that, too. So we will, after the interviews tonight, we'll
Talk
sit
about
here and
everybody.
discuss what we're going to do, and then
Yes. Good.
we will have, next Tuesday, we'll definitely let Wendy know tonight, and then you guys will all be told, and then we will have to make it official next Tuesday.
All right, that sounds great.
Because in April, it all starts, so.
I'll look forward to hearing your decision, and thank you for letting me serve.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hey, man.
Good job.
Yes. Okay.
Next is Kurt Samuelson.
Yes. Kurt Samuelson, Planning Commission.
Ready for Kurt?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know, if you haven't eaten dinner, did you want Jimmy John's? Everybody's getting Jimmy John's. Do you want Jimmy John's?
I'm not sharing.
I have a menu for you.
Oh, tuna.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
What'd you say, tuna?
Yeah.
Why did she say, are you sure? Was this... I'm sure you sure? You want Jimmy John's?
She knows what they put in the tuna. The two Bruces are doing tuna.
Oh, is that right? See, well, there you go. Council? Hi.
Hi, Kurt. How are you? Welcome. Good, how are you?
Great.
Good. Thank you for coming in, we appreciate it.
It's too nice to be inside.
I know, we should go out to the, what is that called?
Courtyard.
Courtyard. I was going to call it a patio. Well, thank you again for coming in. We appreciate it. And we're going to break a little bit from tradition and not do our regular questions that we do clearly they're not as applicable since you've been serving on the board already. And I think we can probably be more specific and pertinent in our questions regarding that. The first question I wanted to ask is, give us a little bit of a, tell us exactly why actually you are wanting to be reappointed.
Good question. Sometimes I wonder myself.
Why?
I think, I feel there's some unfinished business that I would like to continue on with the Planning Commission. I think we've made some progress, significant progress over the past 6 months, but I know the first 3 years were really, really difficult, and I'd like to stay on and continue with the comprehensive plan update, and as well as I enjoy working on the cases that we have. We've had very few over the past few years, but there are a number of cases that we have that we get to see some change in the city, and I'm really excited about seeing those kinds of things on a immediate basis, so that I have a lot to keep my finger in what's going on in the city and like to know what's going on. I don't get anything from Phil. He's always busy, it seems like. So, but I really think that, number one, I want to see that comp plan get a little closer to completion.
Thank you.
I want to do a follow-up, slightly different question from what Debbie just asked. You've been on the Planning Commission for a little over 3 years, I think, something like that. How effective do you assess yourself to be on that commission?
I think fairly effective. I don't say a lot. If you've watched a number of the meetings, when I do say something, I think I have good input. There are others on there that say a lot and get very little out of it. But I think I've been pretty effective, and I think when I do have a comment, it's usually very direct and to the point. And then I think trying to get the others on the board to go one way or the other, I think I've done a good job.
So you use skills to try to change people to your viewpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I have an idea of what I think is right, and obviously there's 6 other people that are looking at that same thing, but I think I try to get them to at least move in a different direction if I think they're off course.
Bill?
Kurt, over the last 3 years or so, there's been quite a bit of opportunity to learn a little bit about, I'll refer to it as master planning, that might occur, and certainly around the comp plan review. And who knows, over the next 3 years, we may see some action with regard some of the larger properties that may be looking for rezoning or changes as that occurs. So everything's not just the comp plan. It could be actually taking a look at what you referred to as projects, some of those actually being larger projects. Do you have any place where you can talk about what you've learned in the last 3 years and applying that going forward to maybe towards visioning for some of our larger properties yet to be developed?
A really steep learning curve when I first came on the Planning Commission. There was a lot that I didn't know. I have a background in the mortgage industry. I've been 29 years in real estate finance here in the Denver area. But it was very interesting, the different zonings. I knew there were different zonings, but I didn't know where they were in the city and how that really affected a lot of things. The different zonings in the downtown area were really interesting to get into, and the B2 and the CA zoning, those things were very interesting. But the design standards and guidelines were something that I didn't really know anything about until I got on the Planning Commission, and those can really help form development in the downtown area, especially because that's where those design standards and guidelines are, just for this area. But I think that it's a wise idea to have those kinds of guidelines in other parts of the city, that we have specific design standards. If you got a planned development, a PDO, they're pretty much setting what they can do, and that's all taken care of through DRC. But it's a lot of things that I've learned that I think will really help going forward whenever we do have a project like that come on board. If the old Marathon property comes back, and there's a lot of talk that there be some changes to that PDO, I think I have a good background in zoning, design standards, and how those things work and how they interrelate to what goes on in the rest of the city.
Peggy?
Yeah, I'm going to tease you a little bit here. I think you said you'd like to see, you're looking at the comp plan, right? And I think you said something like you want to see more of it get done, or whatever you said sounded like you didn't think it might get done in the next 3 years.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to say that.
I was sort of hearing.
No, I didn't mean to say that. I think it can get done. I think with now that we have a community development director on staff, I think it was some good direction from Glenn. I think we have the ability to move forward fairly quickly. I still think it's an 18-month to 24-month process to finish out the rest of that complex.
Okay, I mean, I can hear that, but hopefully if you were reappointed, you would survive longer than that, so, right?
Yeah, I would hope that we could get that within that 24-month time frame. It would be my goal. sooner the better, and I think we need to lay out a certain time plan going forward so that we can try to stick to that plan. With any construction plan, there's always some time when you're off your time frame, but I think if we set a plan and try to stick to our time frame, then we have a much better chance. And certainly with Glenn here, I think he's given us a lot more direction on how we want to go.
Quick follow-up on that. It's my understanding the Planning Commission has seen Glenn's plan to move forward on the comp plan, which does outline timelines and participation and has it kind of finishing within a year. You have seen that?
We have seen that.
Okay. Okay. Jerry?
Great,
Or
thank you.
Bruce? I don't.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. Since Bruce was later than me.
I know, that's right. I'm sorry.
I get to go first. What do you think the role of the Planning Commission should be in the community as far as maintaining and enhancing the neighborhoods?
Maintaining and enhancing the neighborhoods for the Planning Commission. Well, you know, what we have purview over is anything that's changing that isn't already meeting certain guidelines for the city. So a PDO, if they're changing zoning, they're making a large project change. So individually in a neighborhood, unless someone has needs a variance to build a larger home than what the lot size would allow, we probably wouldn't see too much in a specific neighborhood. Now, if you're talking about neighborhoods in general where it includes some commercial area, then, yeah, we have some purview over that, and we would see any kind of plans that come through. But if it still meets the PDO, it will go through design review, and they'll take care of it from there, and we won't see anything in those areas.
Great, thank you. Another question? If you had a different opinion than the rest of the board or Planning Commission, are you willing to voice your opinion, and how would you go about making your point? By dominating conversation? What would you do?
The dominating conversation is not my style, but I would certainly make my point known, and that I would tell them that I disagree with their opinions. But it is a group that has to come together, and you know, we don't vote as much as you guys do, but at least we do have some votes, and the people will move forward on those votes. But if I'm, you know, have something that I'm very adamant about, I would try to push that a little more. But I'm certainly not a verbose participant at the meetings.
In your written, my last question, in your written statement you had wrote, I am concerned about my city and its status in the metro area.
Well, I'm concerned that other cities around us are taking over and taking some revenue from us by building, et cetera. And so I think we need to be a part of DRCOG and the things that are going on there so that we're involved in all of that. I think we need to do things that we can do to help new businesses establish here in the city so that we can keep a revenue base and do the other things that we like to do, so parks and recs and bike paths and trails and those kinds of things. Schools, those are the things that I'm concerned about.
Thank you.
Bruce? No? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
My associate did.
I do
too.
B1 or B2?
Hi, Kurt.
Bruce with the blue shirt.
Okay. The
Who's down in the
one that was on time.
The one that was on time.
Hi, Kurt. You touched on it, that it's a steep learning curve, and with your 1 year as an alternate and 3 years on the commission, you are now an old hand. And so your learning curve should be somewhere at the top there, but you have the potential of 3 new members coming on. As one of the old hands, what would be the kinds of, let's pick a couple things that you would go out of your way to try to help them to learn, to work their way up the learning curve?
I think it's important for the new members to first read through the current comp plan and then read through a lot of the information that we prepared in the new downtown area plan, but also look at zoning and how zoning affects those things and the design standards and guidelines that we have downtown, but just getting a better idea of the entire city. You know, one of the things that I've done a number of times over the past 2 or 3 years is just drive the city, oftentimes stop and get out and walk through and see what's going on in the areas that may be developed down the road along Santa Fe in the downtown area. So I think they just need to be aware and understand zoning issues, design standards and guidelines, and look at the properties or the areas that might have change, the areas of change coming up over the next 4 to 5 years. I think that they could get up to speed a lot quicker.
Thank you.
Kurt, 2 questions, and there's not any particular right or wrong answer. It's more just to hear your thought process, I guess. What is your opinion is the difference between planning and visioning?
Well, vision, I think a vision is, this is an idea of, an ideal perhaps of what we want maybe a city to look like, or a neighborhood or an area. The planning more is the nuts and bolts of how do we get to that vision. So do we change the zoning? Do we change standards and guidelines, design standards to meet that vision? And long term, that vision is more of an ideal. We may never really see that vision come to fruition, but I think the planning tries to get to that.
Maybe sort of a quick follow on there. What, in terms of the orientation of the Planning Commission, what's the right balance between the visioning versus the nuts and bolts?
My opinion, I think the Planning Commission should do more of the visioning through community outreach. How do we get people involved? What ideas do the rest of the citizens have to see what they want in a city? And then more of the nuts and bolts left to staff people to put something together, bring it back to the Planning Commission. We hash through those things and have a better idea, and then we come to an agreement that this is what we want to see.
Okay. And then the second question, does downtown have a parking problem?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I don't think they have a parking problem. I think there's a perceived problem, and in certain times of the day, it's more difficult to find a place to park. But I have walked 2 or 3 blocks, and I think if you go to any other downtown area, especially downtown Denver, you might walk 5 or 6 blocks to get to the restaurant or place that you want to get to, the retail shop. I think that there are some things that we can think about going forward for parking, but it's who takes the lead on those things. I'm more of a private rather than public, and I'm more of the business, thinking that businesses need to do at least more than half of any kind of a parking solution. You know, they're the ones that are really going to benefit from people being able to park downtown, the businesses. And if you go to any other area in the city, if you go to the Aspen Grove, they've taken care of their parking and they charge each of the business owners to have that parking down there. So I think it needs to be some kind of public-private, perhaps, parking solution. But
What is that? Are you envisioning something like a business improvement district that in the football?
I think that might be an alternative. I think that we've got a long ways to go to find out whether that makes the most sense. But an improvement district where you've got some tax and you can issue some bonds to put that together and build some sort of a structure, where that would be is another great question.
Is that part of the comp plan outreach?
I think it should be. I don't know that we've really touched on parking so much in our outreach, but I think it should be in part of that outreach to the public. We talked quite a bit about it in our initial meetings with the stakeholders downtown, with business owners, property owners, and then those that live in the housing down here. And we talked about it, but it wasn't like we had some great epiphany of this is the way most of the people feel about it. I think it seemed like most of the business owners and property owners thought that the city should provide parking.
Maybe Yes, just one last quick follow-on. I mean, this is sort of where the rubber meets the road, maybe. I don't envision that we would ever get consensus amongst all the stakeholders downtown that there is or isn't a parking problem necessarily, or what the right solution to the perceived problem is. And so if there's 5 different solutions, including do nothing, how do you guys sort through that in order to make a recommendation? Because, I mean, that is sort of something the Planning Commission needs to theoretically thrash through and figure out how to solve.
I think first we need to get the stakeholders involved again,
Sure.
specifically on parking. Not just the business owners and property owners, but the people that live down here, and people from outside the area that come down here that seem to think that might be a problem, and hash out some ideas that which way do we go? Is it public? Is it private? Is it joint public-private partnership of some kind? And then hone in on what might be the best solution and who's got a great solution. And then talk to the other communities around here. I was in Golden. They've got a couple of parking lots, parking structures that they built a few years back. They're mostly empty because people don't park in them. So, do you build something and they won't come? We don't want to do that. So I don't think we've got a good handle on the parking situation right now, and I really think we need to bring in the stakeholders again and really hash through that and try to get a better idea of what will work.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Kurt, I have a quick one for you. What do you see as the role of the Planning Commission in terms of their relationship with City Council and vice versa?
Well, council has the final decision on virtually everything that we do, especially with the comp plan. There are some things that we have the final say on with a small project, et cetera. But I think council needs to give direction, and then Planning Commission heed that advice and move forward in that direction. I don't think the Planning Commission needs to be going off on their own tangents away from what council has said that they want us to do. And so I don't think, I think from time to time we're off track a little bit, but I do think we need more input from council on what direction do you want us to go next, and those kind of things.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we'll be back in touch with you soon,
Right.
because we'll deliberate tonight, and then next Tuesday we'll be voting
Okay.
on it. So,
All right.
okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming down. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Kurt.
Sorry we were running a little late. Blame Bruce. Bad Bruce.
Bad Bruce.
It's just too easy to tease you.
We have to create the requirement, you live, work, play,
Yeah,
shop.
exactly.
All in Littleton.
13 and a half
Cannot
square
be
miles.
no commuting.
Do not leave.
Actually, law enforcement has an answer. We call it an ankle.
Nice squeeze.
They're made here in Littleton too, so we're monitored.
You don't want an honest answer today.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Libby.
Hello.
Hi, Libby.
Jill.
Welcome, Libby.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Thanks for reapplying. And we're not going to do our standard questions. You've been on the board long enough that we don't need to give you intro questions. But just would like to have some dialogue, and the council has, we'll just ask different questions and see, have a conversation. First thing I wanted to ask, though, is why do you want to reappoint to the board?
Well,
And you might move the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
I have a microphone.
Just put it a little closer.
You can pull it towards you.
I was part of the group that initially got the Housing Authority going back in '70. we did a study of the community, and we presented to council the information that this community had problems in terms of housing people who were low and later we learned moderate income people as well. So I began with that commitment and the love of the ability to be creative, to deal with housing needs. It's a basic human need that people have. And when housing is good, it allows a citizen to think of other things that will allow them to progress in life. Initially, when we began building housing, people would live in our units perhaps 6 months to a year. Often they were then moving on to a community college, ACC particularly, and they would be able to establish themselves in the community as good wage earners, etc. Didn't need that kind of assistance any longer. But times have changed, so it's important with the changing times to be creative, and I love that aspect of being on the board. We, as you know, are looking at a rental rehab program now, and we have a few other ideas. We've talked with some people in the city about other endeavors, shall we say. And I find that very exciting, stimulating. I believe I have good communication skills, and some of our ideas have not always been well received by people in the community. So I pride myself on being able to listen to people who disagree with us. I was at the Emerald Point community hearings, and I know that there are going to be people who don't always find the possibility of the housing authority doing something good in their neighborhood, what we considered good in their neighborhood, easy to accept. So I also think that I know when to back away, as we've done with Emerald Point, and when to pursue something, as we're doing with the Power Circle project. So it's exciting to create.
Thank you. Welcome. Jerry?
Yes. Hi, Olivia.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
What do you think the role of the Littleton Housing should be in the community as far as maintaining and enhancing neighborhoods?
The rehab program is certainly an important part of the maintenance of the community, and we've looked at specific areas of the community, such as the Northeast Quadrant, where we've been focusing lots of our efforts. But there are parts of the community, the rental portion is something that we've looked at, and rehabbing homes throughout the community that are owned by people has been an important part of both maintaining, and it's not as possible now to build from scratch, and that isn't particularly as much the need. It really is more maintenance and rehabilitation.
Another question. What do you think Littleton Housing Authority's role is in affordable housing in the community?
Well, we had our first home ownership program that we struggled to build 10 homes for ownership, and we found that wasn't the best idea because home ownership really requires a great deal of stability and steady employment. So affordable housing now means that we're, for example, with Power Circle, there'll be apartment units that are available for people with certain incomes.
And we're feeling good about that.
My last question is, if you have a different opinion than the rest of the board, are you willing to voice your opinion, and how will you go about doing that?
Well, I am most certainly willing to voice my opinion. It brings to mind a question that we were confronted with a number of years ago, because I've been on the board for a long time. And I pride myself on having a good sense of ethics, knowing what is right versus what ethically may not be correct. Something may be legal, but it's not ethical. And when our first home ownership, when our first home was going to be resold, we had neglected, and I'll accept responsibility for that, had neglected to build into the contract a codicil which said that if it was going to be sold, it could not have great profit made from it. It should be no more than a certain percentage of inflation. And someone who should not have been owning the house proposed to buy it. And it was not an ethical idea. I fought for 2 hours with the rest of the board. The rest of the board did not see any problem with it. This is a capitalist society, and we ought to be able to invest where we can invest. So after 2 hours, I realized I was wise not to continue any longer. And so I said, I can see that I'm certainly in the minority. It was never nasty argument. And I simply said I would go to the press if they were comfortable with that decision. And the board changed its vote. Because when it did look like something wasn't ethical, it was legal, then their minds, we all changed. It never damaged the relationship that we had with each other. And I take great pride in the fact that I feel strongly about doing things right.
Great. Thank you, Libby.
You're welcome. Bill?
Libby, applaud you for doing things right and at least wanting
Sometimes.
to. In dealing with the Housing Authority, money comes from different places, and sometimes funds comes with strings, codicils, as you might refer to them as, or easements might be something that a land use person would refer to them as. Is there any kind of strings or codicils that would come with money that you might say Littleton shouldn't touch that money?
You mean the city?
Well, the Housing Authority.
I don't believe we've ever been presented with something that didn't feel right or seem right, Phil. And I'm wondering if you have an example of where the money might come from that would not be.
Well, sometimes, there's been some thoughts around transit-oriented development that would say, put us in a direction of possibly higher density than we might have. Is that something that we should be, thinking about, concerned about? That's one that's I've heard discussed, not necessarily for Littleton, but are some of those things that are happening in Denver where they're actually getting some, I'll call it a national pool of money with an anticipation that there's going to be an increased level of density that comes along with that development.
There's a character to Littleton which I think I've been a part of respecting, appreciating, and loving for the years that I've lived here. And I don't know about Denver because Denver's problems are different than Littleton's to a great degree. But certainly I would not want to change the character of Littleton. Anybody else?
I have just
Bruce?
Hi, Vivi. You have the potential of having 2 new members on the board, and you're an experienced member of the board. What kinds of things, let's say 1 or 2, that you would go out of your way to tell them at the very beginning to help them get through that steep learning curve that they'll have as a new member?
Well, we have now developed, well, for a number of years, a good orientation. A tour would be an important first step, and looking at the different kinds of economic ways our housing was developed, I think that would be very important for a new member to understand. Like the League of Women Voters, the alphabet soup in HUD's repertoire is extensive. So when we've had new members, when I can remember, I will, when some abbreviation is brought up, I think that I try to remember at least to say, this is what that means. But we do have an orientation now. It takes a while to sort of get the hang of all. The programs are so diverse now. When we started out, there were basically 2 programs, and they were government funded. Now, much of our work is done by our creativity. The monies that we got from Amity Plaza at one point, which we saved so that we could begin to use it for other development. It is intricate, but it's a sort of a happy kind of task.
Thank you.
To teach somebody else.
Thank you, Libby. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for coming down. Thanks for waiting for us.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah.
And we'll be deliberating this evening, and then we'll let everybody know what's going on this week, and then we'll vote Tuesday.
Libby, thank you for all your
Thank you.
service. Very much.
Okay, do you want to take a quick break, 5-minute break?
Let's do.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Except for Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce has to.
We're interviewing.
You just keep asking questions.
Exactly.
Jerry, you only get a 2-minute break.
Hey. Don't say so, Jim. I was expecting you to.
Were they not?
You know, at Dado Vivo, I walked in the house just like
Really
this, no
good.
jacket.
I know,
just like
I know. I
hiring
did
men,
that
that's
the
a
other
big,
night when we
a
had
big
council, because
decision.
it was so nice
It'll
and warm,
make
and it
or
was
break.
cold going home. I got to throw something in the car. This is the time of year.
Yeah, that's what I need to do too.
Yeah.
Are you cold?
Yeah. I think now that the roof is done, the vents are all working, so the
But
air
his out of
conditioning's
shape.
on and everything.
He's better as a quarterback than almost everybody. But his ability.
He's not a tiny guy. It's not like he's frail.
He's bigger than everybody.
You've got tobacco.
But he's such a gentleman on the field.
The thing is, it's better for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the move. You know, I like Tebow, but it's
Are they in sad shape?
That's permanent.
Trying to rush one's permanent. You have an option.
I just need you here, man.
The breast work.
Because it says,
Such low visibility.
look right where the shirt.
See, that's the reason why somebody used the wrong marker.
Yeah, so why did it even?
Why they even bring them in here?
No, the black one was not. The black one was actually a,
The red one's
the red one was not.
What, Jim?
It's in there, it's
Jim?
because somebody was using it on one of the flow charts and it got left.
They do make them now that you can use them both, so. All right, you guys ready? Ready, Freddie?
Yeah, man.
Did you signal?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I want to make a comment before we get started with the things. I mentioned this to Debbie the other day, is that I think when we get through and make all of our appointments, that she needs to send a letter out on our behalf that does two things. Number one, it tells all the boards and commissions that we, as the council, is going to be looking at the absentee rate, because we've been asking the board chairman to give response back to us, and that has not been successful for the past few years. So we're going to take that responsibility away from board chairman, and we'll take that on, and we'll look at it when we are doing our interviews ourselves, because Wendy gives us all that information. We'll make that determination about that. The second thing is that she should tell that the council is from now on going to interview everybody who is asking for reappointment. This time we only did 3 committees, the 3 that had the most applicants for, and but I think we need to tell everybody in the future we're going to interview everybody who's up for reappointments. She sends that letter out on our behalf, in not with the booklet that goes out, but as a separate letter. What do you think?
So, are we debriefing then? Is this part of the debriefing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get to that. Jim just wanted to bring that up, and I actually think it's a good idea. I think one of the things that is difficult when we were dealing with the absenteeism before, the liaison would sometimes bring that information in, but yet then we weren't having support from the board or commission chair, and so then it became, who should really be doing this? So we turned it over and asked the chairman to do it. But I think that maybe putting some undue pressure or stress or just asking someone to do something that they may not feel comfortable doing.
So clarify, how would the attendance be taken and conveyed?
The attendance is currently taken at every meeting, and we have already done away with the excused, unexcused, but I'm not sure all the boards and commissions do that, understand that, so we'll make that clear in the letter, that an absent, and then reiterate what the policy is for.
So the minutes would show who's present, who's absent? And then who would be translating? Wendy would translate that, or?
Well, she sends that, it's in your book now. It's in your booklet now about the attendance.
No, I know that. But if who is going to be compiling it is what I'm
Wendy does
asking.
the book for us.
Well, yeah, but where is she going to get the information? Is
From the boards and
from the
commissions.
Boards and
boards?
commissions.
That's what I just was
Yeah.
Well,
asking.
everyone I've ever been to, they've sent an attendance sheet around and people sign it.
No, that's what I'm asking. So that, Wendy would then be the one keeping track of it.
Yeah, we're not
That's-
keeping track.
No, that's all I was
And
asking.
Wendy is keeping track anyway.
Yep, she's keeping track anyway. I think what we do is we make it very clear to each of the people too, that these are the expectations. That this is, and when we interviewed you, you agreed that you could meet those expectations, that you didn't have conflicts. And we do allow for some absenteeism. You have to be generous and, understand that people have lives, but, there's some, looking through here, there's some attendance problems, and what it does is it just puts an undue burden on the rest of the committee, and so we have a responsibility to keep these committees healthy and lively and everybody working together and not having it lopsided, so.
Well, in the proposed board commission handbook, would have them sign that they accept the charge and the attendance, all of that. So they would sign that piece.
Everything in the guidelines.
Right, yeah. And so that then is their commitment.
So, okay, everybody's okay with that? Sure. Okay. So, Steve, anything else?
And
Well, yes, but it's probably, I'll wait till the end to talk about it.
Okay.
I'll change the name of one of our committees, so.
No way, you can't do that. This is not a radio
It won't
show.
make any difference about appointments, I tell you, but
It's not a radio show, Jim. You don't have to tease.
get you to look at 10 o'clock news tonight.
In the first 5 minutes.
Okay, so I think the best way to approach this is head-on. I would recommend we do is we'll go ahead and start with the 3 that we have asked people to re-interview for. So, we got to get through, we're going to get through each of them. So let's start with so that puts us at the Planning Commission and Historic Preservation Board and Littleton Housing Authority. So shall we start with the Planning Commission?
You want to?
Yeah, Wendy's going to do. And so what we typically do is go around the room and people announce their first choice and then the second choice and third choice. And then as those get support or not support, they either move over or go away. Is everybody okay with doing it the same way, Peggy?
I think it might be easier, at least on my brain, if there are X number of openings, to identify X number of people, get those up there, and then see who would get which term. Because I have, it's quite difficult for me to differentiate at least the first couple of choices for that.
So like the Planning Commission, there are 3 spots right now. You're saying to do all,
There's actually
well, actually 4 spots. So you're saying to list your top 4 people?
Yeah.
All
I
at
would
one
like-
time.
I would like to do that too, rather than prioritizing those folks. I'd like to say,
Okay.
this is my group.
Okay.
It'll be fine. It'll
Okay.
work out.
That's sort of the same
It's
way,
sort-
it's just doing it
I'm not,
a little.
I agree with Peggy, I'm not comfortable differentiating a 1 and a 2.
Okay, first choice, second choice, okay, that's great. All right, so is everybody okay with that? We'll just give our top 4. Okay, and the top 4 also includes Kurt.
It also includes Kurt.
So who wants to start?
Will.
Jim?
Randy Duzan. Trying to find how you spell his name. Oh, Duzan. Okay. Andrew Graham. Mark Runitke. Dan Miller.
Who wants to go next? Phil?
I'll go. Randy, Andrew, Mark.
Wait a minute, she'll put a tally mark there.
Is that what you want, a tally mark?
Sure,
Yeah.
I would do it.
Okay, so we got 1, 1, 1, and 1.
Can we
Okay.
turn a light on for that board? Is it
I'll
possible?
get it.
I can get that.
Can you say yours again, Phil? Sorry.
Okay, Randy, Andrew, Mark, and Kurt Samuelson.
Who's ready?
Okay.
Jerry?
So I agree with reappointing Kurt.
Okay?
Are you trying to turn the light up there?
Hit the top button and hold it down.
There they go.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. You're good, Bruce. Thank you. Okay, and then for the new appointments would be Renicki, Duzanne, and let's see, I think on the other one, I'm looking at, let me get back to my final one. I want to go back and look
Okay.
at a couple things. I don't want to hold it up.
Good Bruce or bad Bruce?
I'm ready.
Good Bruce, you can go first.
Thank you. I like being good Bruce tonight. And it's very fleeting. It will be gone. My choices are Rudnicki, Graham, Duzan, and to reappoint Samuelson.
Bruce?
Yeah, Duzan, Rudnicki, Graham, and Samuelson.
Peggy?
I need to double check on mine here because I think I screwed up on somebody.
Okay, I'll go. Graham? Suzanne? Hales? William Hales?
William Hales.
And Miller.
Okay. Samuelson. Suzanne. Rudnicki. And Hales.
Okay, what's your last one?
Hales.
Okay, the highest were this one, and there was a tie between this one and this one.
But
And
we
you're
have
looking for
four.
four.
We have 4. So is everybody good with those 4?
Can anybody's mind be changed, or
Sam-
do we want to try, or do we want to just?
Nope, I'm satisfied.
I mean,
I'm going to let you talk for a second. We'll see if you sound.
Samuelson is scheduled for 2015 already. And we got 2 others for 2015 and 1 for 2014, which would be alternate number 2.
When is the field position?
So the
Somebody's got to be an alternate, and the other 2 becomes,
I mean, if Samuel,
no, it'd be 2 alternates, wouldn't there be? Because alternate number 1's be moving up.
do you,
Yeah, so 2 alternates, and 1 would expire in
15, 1, and 14.
2015.
Based on the numbers, you would put Andrew as the alternate.
Yeah.
Just based on the numbers.
Is alternate,
We need 2
we need 2
alternates.
alternates.
Well, based on the number, Samuelson, go back to an alternate,
Wait a second.
which we can't do.
Is there an alternate 1 now?
That's who's moved up already.
Because
Oh, okay.
Gallagher
Had to resign.
resigned, so that moved an alternate up that we had not replaced.
Are you comfortable with me erasing this one and this one?
Yes.
I don't personally think necessarily the most numbers when we did it this way is the absolute only way to look at it. I would personally say that Kurt should get a 2015 appointment.
Well, maybe Mark can consider it. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
You said 2015, Jim?
There's somebody,
Can you use a
yeah,
dark
2015.
color? Good, Bruce, can you use a dark color? Or name?
There are no other choices.
Does Bad Bruce have it?
I think
Wasn't
it's,
me.
I think that we can, I would recommend, quite honestly, as an alternate, I would recommend Mark.
And let me tell you why I wouldn't. I would like Mark to be a full member, because when I look at the numbers, there's 4 people, well, there were 4 people from District 2, but District 1, does it have any from District 1 currently?
You know, I don't-
Matt? Yeah, so I would like to see District 2 be represented on a more balanced.
Well, I don't,
And Mark is bringing in some good experience for a comp plan. I just think it'd be worthwhile.
I guess I don't have an issue with which district they live in. I'm hoping that they get up there and represent the community as a whole. My concern on Mark was, I felt that during the interviews that he had he brought a great deal of, for lack of a better term, I'll say, and this is really, I probably shouldn't even say this word, but 4-year-old baggage of what that planning commission was doing and the way things were at that point. And there's been a lot of change. I just feel it seems to me that it might be good for there to be a little bit of more of a ramp up on the way things are, we're currently operating. I felt like Mark had a lot of information, but I wasn't certain that I didn't feel comfortable that he was coming in a learning mode. He was coming in more in a teaching mode, and I felt that it might be a good idea to take a step back and ease into.
I hear what you're saying, Deb, and so I think the proposal would be to have Andrew and Mark be identified as the alternates.
I would agree with that.
Is everybody okay with that?
Wait a minute, so
Andrew and Mark would be alternates. We have an alternate for 2014 that would expire 2014, and one would expire 2015. So,
Well, may I?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is Dozen, he's the individual that he brings in a lot of experience with government, doesn't he? Wasn't that the one?
He's a planning and development, urban, regional
Yeah,
planning.
I'm concerned that we put someone that's too heavy on actual planning versus, say, an architect, which Mark is. I'm a little concerned putting somebody who is more of the urban planning right up the bat on the full membership.
But on the other hand, we are a infill redevelopment community, and urban planning is going to be one of the things that's going to be happening in Littleton for the next 20 years.
And I guess from Randy's professional background is also as a landscape architect. Planning's kind of what he's moved himself into, but he has some pretty practical background is what I require is dealing with the actual projects.
I guess I need a picture of the guy to make sure I'm thinking the right person even now that I think about it.
Second night late.
well, yeah.
He was the
And
last.
keep in mind that the alternates are full
When someone's not there.
discussion, all of that. They just do not vote. But they are fully contributing on all levels except for that vote.
Right, and they move up to the quorum. They move up to the 7
Right, and if
there's an
there is
absent.
an absenteeism. So they kind of do have to hit the ground running a bit too. so.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Anyway, withdraw that from my statement about Dozen. It's not what I was thinking. Wrong individual.
well, I want to comment on Mark.
We'll work to correct you all night.
One of the, Mark made some comments that I think show that he has changed perspective a little bit from several years ago. in response to question 2 in the list of questions we had, he said that he wanted to involve citizens right away. When he was on the commission before, it was last minute. He didn't think that was good. He talked about vanilla ideas and not local ones. I mean, anyway, so I think he's strong in the involvement. Another thing is, if things come before the commission that have to be decided in terms of zoning and so forth, he's already fairly up to speed then, so.
Who are you talking about again? I'm sorry. Mark, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I see him as stronger than an alternate, than somebody else who's learning the ropes with that commission.
Bruce?
I'm going to, I think, agree with that. My sense of Mark, I respect your point. By the same token, I thought he's got, it'd be hard for him not to be colored by what his experiences were. By the same token, he struck me as being very well-versed and articulate in the breadth of the community. And I think our issue here is we want these guys to get traction and move forward in a, we need them to cover a lot of ground quickly, and I think that he can bring a lot to the table in that regard, and I don't really, my sense is I don't really have concerns that he's going to, I don't know, backslide by virtue of the fact that it is a new culture on there's new direction, there's new people involved, there's new staff, there's new council, so forth and so on. I just think he's got the skill set to really add value.
I think he can add value as an alternate.
One of the things that he said, he's absolutely out of touch when he made comments about Woodlawn Shopping Center.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
He called Woodlawn an I've got it written down, an underperforming shopping center, and
absolutely.
that couldn't be further from the truth.
But
Yeah. It was when he was on the council.
Right, but it's not now.
if we talk to Chris, though, he might have a different opinion on that.
Well, we got the information
Well,
from
talk to the
Chris.
merchants out there. I mean, and what's underperforming,
Yeah, that's
according to who?
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Do we run a straw poll around on that, just a show of hands? Because we've got some diversity of opinions on Mark and let's keep in mind, an alternate doesn't mean that they don't get to come until somebody's gone. They're there, they're participating. It's just a voting position.
But if you
I
look,
don't-
go ahead.
There's two of them open, one's 2014 and one's 2015. He could go to the 2014, that's position. So, do you have?
But if you look at the way we voted tonight, Duzan got 7 votes and Rudnicki got 6. So Duzan should go in as the other full-time planning commission member according to the way we voted up there. And then the 2 alternates had to decide between Rudnicki and Graham. And if you look at the votes again, Rudnicki would go in as alternate 1 and Graham as alternate 2.
Help me understand the logic for not having Kurt go back in as an alternate since we re-interviewed him straight up anyway. I mean, I respect that he's on now, but why can't we put him in as an alternate?
Good.
Well, based on what you just described, I mean, if 6 of us, the 2 top vote getters were Mark and Randy and Mark, which I think you can make an argument those are the ones the majority feel the most comfortable about, relatively speaking.
I think we have 3-3 right now. Bruce, where are you on Mark?
I appreciated what you said about giving him a chance to reset, and that might be helpful to him to do that. I also respected, though, that he had that experience. He wanted to get back in the game. He was an architect. He's experienced in doing those kinds of things, which makes him very strong and ready to participate and vote, but I appreciate what you said. So I'm really going, I could go either way. I truly could. I'm uncomfortable with saying that Curtis continues to be an alternate. I think there's nothing like proving that you can do the job other than doing the job, and these others are potentials for doing the job, but he has been doing it, and I think that that means something in spite of the vote. So I'm troubled by saying that Kurt would be an alternate. I can understand your issues with Mark. Randy clearly is the first choice, and Andrew, is in the middle. So I want to hear a little more on why Mark would be an alternate, I guess.
Well, another one of my thoughts, though, with Kurt, and is that, yeah, we could put him back as an alternate, but I feel like Kurt, it seemed to me tonight that I think he wants to be a greater contributor, and I don't think if we put him back to an alternate that he would feel that we were supporting that.
I agree with that.
So there's a concern there. And in terms of Mark, I just think that there's, I thought he was very strong in his interview, but he came in with a lot of opinions. He came in with a lot of, I felt, it's my personal opinion, a lot of preset things, and I just have a real concern with that when you're getting into really, the Planning Commission is right in the middle of a whole bunch of work, and when you come in with that, I just don't know how much that can shift a lot of the dynamics that are going on, and I don't know, I just don't feel, I would rather see Mark come in as an alternate at this point. That's
I guess the negative part that you're talking about Mark's comments, I think he was referring more to the behavior of the Planning Commission, how it's been over the last many years since there was a turmoil a while back. It was right after my time when my term was up, but there was a bit of a turmoil. And I think that's what he was referring to, not city staff or any of that kind of stuff. He was talking about turmoil on the board, on the commission itself.
Why don't we do this straw poll?
well.
Yeah, let's just go around the table and just do it. Let's just
Just run around and see. Show of hand, did you have a comment?
Just clarify that, is Samuelson going to stay on as a regular member?
Let's ask.
Samuelson going to stay on as a regular member?
Yeah, so let's,
Let's do a count.
We can determine who goes to alternate or regular. Okay, show of hands for Suzanne to be a regular.
How many regulars do we have again?
Regular.
How many?
Two regulars and two alternates among,
Show of hands
With Kurt in the mix.
for Andrew Graham to be a regular. There's 3.
you only get 2 votes. I guess.
Right. Show of hands for, well, I don't know how else to, Rudnicki to be a regular. 2, 3. And show of hands for Samuelson to be a regular.
Oh,
Okay, it's Samuelson and Suzanne. A regular. And then do you want to put Rudnicki as alternate for 2014 and Graham as 2015?
Which is first?
2014.
14.
That is first
That's
alternate?
alternate two.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's alternate two. 2014 is alternate two.
Oh, okay, so Mark would be alternate 2.
Wait,
I would
which
rather
one's in
Mark
first?
Yeah, let's do one.
Oh, wait.
He should be alternate
Okay,
one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Alt 1 would be Mark,
Yes.
and alt 2 would be Andrew.
Graham, there we go.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah, because if somebody resigns, you want someone to step up.
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right, shall we move to HP?
So those in, he's a full,
Yeah.
Kurt, Randy and Kurt are.
Kurt is a full,
Yeah.
Mark alt 1.
HP.
Okay.
HP?
HP.
Three names.
Three names.
3D. So we've got, and of those 3, we have we have 2 of them would be alternates. Okay.
Right.
And Chuck is
regular.
HP we're on, okay.
Okay, so this time, let's start with Phil.
Okay, the three that I would have are Chuck Reed, Dan Miller, and Greg LaRocque.
Can I make it simple? Because I agree the same, so
Okay.
he can just go ahead and,
Put Peggy vote next to each of those two, and Jerry?
Reed, Miller, LaRocque.
Okay, same. Good, Bruce?
Chuck Reed, Greg LaRocque, Nicholas Kurtz, Kurtz.
And bad Bruce?
Reed, LaRocque, and Miller.
So we have
And I'll go the same, with the same,
Yours are the same?
yeah.
LaRocque and Miller. Okay.
Now, who's going to be alternate one, alternate two?
They both expire at the same time, it's just a sequencing.
I think LaRocque ought to be alternate one,
I agree.
and Miller alternate two.
Okay.
I'll agree with that.
Okay, awesome.
And we're going to, it's a consensus that Pam Grove and Dan Murphy are going to move to regular positions.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, the footnote on this one is that Historic Preservation has a architect subgroup with this, and both Dan and Greg are architects.
Okay, Housing Authority. We have 3 positions. One is a regular, and, well, I guess all 3 are regulars. So there's one that would expire in 2014, and the other 2 would expire in 2017.
Yep.
Okay, so who wants to start? There's your sandwiches.
I can go ahead and start.
Glad you found us.
Oh, look at her there.
Thank you.
You were like ready to kill.
Well, I just yelled at him on the phone.
Oh, did you?
I'm embarrassed.
Okay. Housing Authority, let's start with Jerry.
Okay. First of all, with Libby, I think it would just be totally, I guess, inappropriate not to appoint Libby Boyce, period. Period. After that, though, what I'm looking at is, I would like to get at least one District 2 person in there, and that would be Brad Ulig. And that's U-H-L-I-G. And then the other one, I would like to see Heather Poe, just because they really need to have a female presence on this particular housing authority. Those are my 3, and I think that's all we have.
Okay. Bruce?
Yeah, I think Libby being reappointed is about as close to a no-brainer as we're ever going to
We're going
get.
to get tonight, yeah.
Then I would go with Oster, Miller, and Ulig.
same three for me?
Libby, Ulick, and Austin.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Same 3.
Libby, Ulick, and Austin. And Phil?
You were going to do Jim?
Oh, Jim.
Me too. Libby?
I was just going to allow him to, Okay, and I have the same three, and I'll go a step further, and I would put Brad in the position of expiring 2014.
Hold on, I get the vote.
Oh, okay.
Just adding. Slow down. Slow down, sailor.
I just briefly.
No.
Oh, you dropped the string. All right, so Libby keeps hers as a regular, and Buick and Osti are both alternates.
No.
There are no alternates.
It's a board of 7, everyone's same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Did you want to assign yours?
Yeah, I was going to put Brad, that was my comment. I would put Brad in the 2014 role.
Anybody have a problem with that?
Brad was 2014?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now we've got the easy ones done. Alrighty, fine arts. And in fine arts, we have 3 openings. We had 2 people that interviewed.
And we had 2 people who were listed as their third choice. We didn't have anybody listed as a second choice. But 2 people did list third choice for fine arts.
And I know that there's some discussion amongst the committee, and they're probably going to come through with the task force, that there may be some restructuring there, which would probably allow a smaller committee than is currently existing, particularly if there's a reallotment of who handles the conservation pieces in the city. So the question becomes, do we want to, we have 3 choices. We can try to fill these with what we have tonight. We can fill as many as we feel comfortable filling with the people that we talk to specifically interested in it. 1 or 2 position. Or we can, if we're not ready to do that, we can open it up and do it. Because I think we're going to end up having to re-interview, have a reapplication process for the licensing authority to get that position filled. So, Bruce, and then Phil.
You correctly described the situation, and the transition will occur in the next couple months as far as the amount of staffing that's necessary, because we're looking very heavily at the issue that you've raised. The other part is, the reason we're looking at that issue is that has been a board with a tremendous amount of requirement of work because of the conservation piece, almost to the point of it exceeds the capabilities and has in the past, and may be an unrealistic expectation. So for that reason, I would not want to take somebody who that was their number 2 choice either, because still, that's a hardworking board, and somebody needs to knowingly, willingly go into it, or they won't fit. So I would rather go for the 2, and then we can always relook it as things change a little bit.
Okay.
I thought we
Ditto.
had 3 candidates.
I agree.
We do.
We have 2 first choicers. The other 2 we had 4 total that signed up, 2 of them didn't
That's-
show up.
But Stroman came back in and called it her first choice. After she one of them?
Wasn't she the
Yeah.
telephone?
It was the telephone.
Telephone.
Right.
It was her
Yeah.
first choice.
And then Jerry Clapsaddle, it was his
Very
first choice.
But
And
Schaefer,
Christina.
too. Christina Schaefer was her first choice.
She never showed up.
She called and said she couldn't come.
I'm sorry. Okay. My bad, I didn't cross her.
So is everybody okay with appointing those 2? We'll leave 1 position open, okay? All right.
Who's going for 14, who's for 15?
I would,
Both 50.
Make
Yeah.
them both.
Make them both
think about
50.
15.
That put 4 of them in at 15, though. You need to be careful
Oh,
that you don't
that's
have,
true.
so, Yeah, but we may be reducing it too, down to 7, so you don't have 4 of them.
I would
they don't
put
re-up,
Clap
yeah.
Saddle on
Yeah,
14.
yeah, let's put Jerry on, a little bit of Jerry goes a long way, so why don't we put him on 14?
Well, I
Nothing
would-
like a good Jerry on the board.
I would like him. in
So then,
15.
who is it, Stroman was 15?
Oh, yeah, I actually would like that reverse, too.
I would,
was
too.
thinking Jerry for,
For 15.
yeah.
15?
Sorry.
Or whichever.
Okay.
So are we switching now?
Yeah, Kelly gets 14 and Jerry gets 15.
Okay, and we're reappointing Jim Dixon and Sarah Trujillo.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then nothing on library. Licensing, or I don't see a viable option to do anything but open that up again.
How many, we're short,
Everyone, one.
well, yeah, Donovan goes back on, but we've got to replace Susan.
And I think if we open it back up, we ask Donovan to re-interview. Okay.
So we're not going to appoint anybody for licensing?
No, we're going to reopen it and,
No, leave Donovan on for now.
yeah, we'll leave him on for now, but when we reopen it, we'll ask if he would want to be, because his position will be considered. There will be 2 openings.
Okay, the only thing that I would just caution you on is that timing, because April 1st is the start of all the new terms, and
We have to reappoint him.
they're going to have a meeting, and they're not going to have a quorum.
Or the other thing we could do is appoint somebody to the licensing authority, and if, when you contact them, say the council appointed you to the licensing authority, they've got the opportunity to say yay or nay, turn it down, wouldn't they?
I'm sorry, say that again?
If we have just appointed somebody to the licensing authority because we didn't interview for that,
Right.
but we did interview a bunch of people who are not going to get appointed to anything.
Right.
So we take one of those and appoint them as a member of the licensing authority. If they choose not to do that, they just tell you they don't want to be.
They could do
They
that,
could do
yes.
And then we're
And
not any
if-
worse off than what we already are.
If that was the case, then I would actually not just send a letter, I would call them and
Yes.
make the offer that way. I wouldn't just leave them hanging out there with a letter.
Jim, do you have a suggestion for who?
Well, I don't know. I would put James Boone in.
Well, he wanted Board of Adjustment, and everybody, well, that's not entirely true. Ferris is second choice for that one.
Why don't we go through, and then if we have a candidate that we think still...
Who's left?
Come back to licensing.
Before we leave the topic, at least one I would consider would be Heather Poe, as that kind of
Yeah, you know,
enforcement.
I support that. And we've already passed her.
What'd you say?
Heather Poe.
I would not support appointing anybody we did not interview for this, I'm sorry. And I think since we have a position that opened that we didn't anticipate, that we should announce that. And I would say that we should appoint Donovan, who is asked to be reappointed, and we did not say that we needed to interview for that. So that's what I think.
I think the problem with not reappointing Donovan and asking him if we do open up interviews for that is that we will not be interviewing that until April, and we will need to have approved these reappointments next week. So I think that would be an appointment, and if we do reappoint Donovan, they'll have a quorum at their meetings, right? But I agree with Peggy. I do think that this particular board is a very, they go very quasi-judicial, legal, probably not quasi-judicial, but very legal on this, and
It's a set process.
people need to want to do it. It's like what you said about the planning commission, that needs to be their first choice. And we didn't even have it opened up, so we didn't hear from the community who might be interested in it. I know that last time we interviewed for it, we had quite a few people that wanted to sit on it, so I guess I feel we should open it up again. Let's a show of hands to open it and interview.
Appoint Donovan and then open it up.
Yes.
Open and interview, okay. All right. Museum board, we have one opening. We have,
I would suggest accepting the reappointments and Jean Ray.
okay, so Jean gets a vote. Jerry?
I have reappointments and Hale,
And who?
William Hale.
Okay. Bruce?
Yeah, no, which one?
We got you.
You guys figure it out.
Turned off.
No, okay. No, I should have done it. Yeah, I agree with the reappointments. I think I slight the lean to Jean Ray.
The reappointment and Jean Ray.
Peggy?
I'm looking at my notes here, this is really tough. Like reappointments, I feel, but let me,
I'll vote William.
I'll go with Ray.
looking at next meeting.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter, well, I'll go with Hales.
Okay, so Jean Ray?
So Ray?
Yes.
Okay, tree committee. So we have 2 openings, and we have 1 applicant with a first choice. We did have an applicant who had it as their 3rd choice, Trina. What's Trina's last name?
Fulton.
Fulton?
She has second choice though for Board of Appeal. And we need one.
Yeah, and James Boone had it as a 3rd choice too, along with Ed Peters.
Who was that again, sir?
For Building Board of Appeals was James Boone, and Ed Peters had his 3rd choice.
And Whitner?
He wasn't in. Wait,
So you want to talk about all 3 at the same, but if...
Well, let's,
just want to pick.
do we want to, go ahead.
In the task force, one of the things that we're talking about is, particularly this board, commission, or committee, is not required to be active and make decisions year-round. And in the thought process is, perhaps this is best an ad hoc committee, and it be called for the specific purposes, which are the tree giveaways and the tree planting, and then occasional issues. I'm only pointing that out because finding 2nd and 3rd choices to fill in here, they may be unhappy finding out that there's some thought to the restructuring of the committee. It's just a consideration.
Well, any other comments on that? I do think that Greg was an ideal choice. He was just perfect. So I would be okay with that, having been a liaison on the tree committee. There's really just 2 times a year that you really do need that extra help and manpower and woman power on that. So I think it would not be killer to leave an opening there. They've had an opening on that committee for a long time anyway. So.
Well, I guess I would have put Trina at least make the offer, even though it's her choice. It is probably a little more of a volunteer activity, and I'm not sure that I saw another bid given the rest of what my list is. So as we're taking them, I would put Trina there as
But if you're going to do an advertising anyway, you can do an advertising for that just as well as you do for the licensing board.
Well, based on what Bruce said regarding a little bit of restructuring and recognizing that it is it's an important group because of what they do when they do it, and that we do need to have that committee because of the Million Tree
City USA.
Tree City USA. So we do, it is required. I guess I would say let's put Greg on that, and if we need to, when you guys come back with some restructuring, if we need to get someone else on that. Their busy time is going to be April and September,
They
October.
just did the tree.
Did we just do the tree?
Well, they just took the information on the trees.
Because it's really the day that they give the trees
It's going to be the
away.
day they give it away and the plantings are occurring.
So, show of hands to put Greg on. Okay. Show of hands if we want to put Trina on. Okay. Okay, so Greg will go on. That will be it.
And reappoint John Lawson.
Yes.
Yes.
Reappoint John, my neighbor.
Who is he? I didn't know that.
Goes across the street. And, okay, so Board of Adjustments. We have one alternate, which is alternate two.
Before we go on to those, can we just say we're going to reappoint the victim council and riverfront authority people?
Oh, okay, yes.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, we are going to reappoint Riverfront Authority, yeah. We're going to reappoint Victims Assistance Board and the library.
And Gary Thompson's name is misspelled on your list. On Riverfront.
Missing an H.
Missing an H, T-H-O-M-P.
Okay, Board of Adjustments.
Okay, let me throw out an idea, because the two people that I have for the Board of Adjustments and Building Board of Appeals are Ed Peters and James Boone. And a little bit of a toss-up as to which goes in which direction for those two. And I'd be looking for some folks that might be maybe a little more familiar than I am on some of the activity as to which might be best for
Which two are you talking, Board Adjustments and?
Building Board of BBA. BOA and BBA.
Board of Adjustments. How often does the Board of Adjustments meet? Are they the ones that are very infrequently?
Both of these are very infrequent.
Very infrequent.
Now.
Okay.
Miller's an architect. So is one called for more in one environment than the other?
Who was the architect?
Dan Miller?
Peters, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I pulled
Oh, Peters.
I pulled the wrong one. Yeah.
He was an attorney, now he's a architect, is it?
Engineer. He's a, he's law, MBA, and then he has a BS in general engineering.
Well, Peters, when he made his application, made it his first choice as being the Board of Adjustment, and his second choice, the Planning Commission. When he got to the interview,
Right.
he switched those two and said his first was Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment. The Building Board of Appeals, there was one person, nobody wanted their first choice. Trina Fulton for second choice, James Boone and Ed Peters both said for their third choice. So I guess I would put in Peters at Board of Adjustment and James Boone in Building Board of Appeals.
And Trina was the second, that was her second choice, was Board of Appeals?
Right, yes.
Okay, show of hands for Ed Peters on Board of Adjustments. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, Ed Peters, Board of Adjustments, is now alternate two.
And then reappoint Kenneth Schock and John Spencer and Arnie McDaniels.
Okay. Building Board of Appeals, show of hands for Boone.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Show of hands for Boone on Building Board of Appeals. He's got 5 votes.
That's it.
And we will reappoint John Watson and move Dave Mitchell up to regular. Jim Gravina goes to alternate 1, and Boone is alternate 2. Okay? That's all. That's it.
That was easy. Library reappointments? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we blessed those.
Did we do that? What was I doing?
What were you?
Where was I? Was I here?
Okay, so Jim, you had something else?
Well, one other question for the group is, we've got 4 authorities that operate in the city. We've got the Building Authority, we have the Housing Authority, Riverfront Authority, and the Licensing Authority. All but the Licensing Authority are controlled by certain sections of state law which are not term limited in those 3 boards. There's no term limits for them. Under the Licensing Authority, we do have term limits for them. So I'm wondering if we should look at changing that from Licensing Authority to Licensing Committee or Commission, as opposed to calling it an authority. So it doesn't get confused with those that are governed by state law versus how we govern them in our codes.
Well, I thought at least part of what we are doing now with the operations is governed by state law. I thought Kirsten made a point of that.
It's always been governed by state law,
I know, but...
the licensing authority. All of their rules and regulations are in the
But-
Colorado revised statutes.
But they do have term limits. That's the only authority we've got that's term limited because of our codes.
Well, on the licensing authority, I think that's a good thing. Just to be able to turn it over. They are very different, but they are an authority, I think.
Jim, what I don't understand is at least appears on our list that there's, as Libby came to us for a reappointment, are we saying there aren't?
There are no term limits for Housing Authority. There's no term limits for Building
Then why
Authority.
did,
There's
then
no
why did we
term-
do a reappointment? That's what I don't.
Because the term was up.
Well, there's no limit.
Oh,
And they're-
term limits,
and-
okay, got
And they're
it.
5-year terms.
Work with me.
Yeah, I got it.
The other 3 are all 5-year terms,
They are.
except the Liquor Authority.
And we did reappoint all Riverfront, right?
Yes.
That was when you were sleeping.
That's when I was still blacking out. I heard that. I heard you laugh.
Who's laughing with you?
Well, it's just a thought, and if there's
That's a good point.
support for doing that, Kirsten's got to figure it out anyway.
I think that would be a task force. Can you take that into consideration?
Good idea.
Could you bring that?
Make a note of that, Wendy, so we bring it
Yes,
to the
sir.
table. So the question is, should we have term limits on building, housing, and riverfront, or do we change a name so that the licensing authority, so we don't get somehow confused as to what has term limits and what doesn't? Is that
Right.
Okay.
So now we're still debriefing?
Well, is there anything else,
Yeah,
Peggy?
I got 2 things. I suggest that next year we consider, not that we decide now, but I'm putting it out there, to have people submit written answers to the questions. And they, rather than trying to type something or other into the online, that they actually write out answers and either email them or mail the answers. The reason I'm suggesting that is we had several people who presented pretty spiffy documents to us about themselves. And they took the initiative to do that, but on the other hand, that subtly can influence when you suddenly see this wonderful write-up addressing various questions that we gave them. And I think it would facilitate our process when we actually interview them. So that's one suggestion. And then I would add one question, and that is, have they attended or watched the board or commission or whatever that they're applying for. So we'd know, do they have any familiarity? Have they that much interest that they've actually attended or watched at least one meeting and know what goes on?
Some of those, I think, would be very difficult. Well, I think people would feel uncomfortable to show up at some of those meetings.
But we did ask that, if not last year, I think we asked it last year.
Have you ever attended a library board meeting, as an example?
Pardon?
That you've ever attended a library board meeting?
I don't know if we asked it on that one. I know we asked it on some, but there's no reason that they can't attend. We have had occasionally, we did when I was on liaison to the library board, we had, I think, once somebody attended just for the heck of it. Not necessarily somebody who applied, but it seems to me that that wouldn't disqualify somebody, but it would give us more information about them, so.
I guess I would throw out both of your suggestions, I think, should be considered by the task force, because I think one of the things that I'm hoping comes back from the task force, too, is an improvement on the interview process, improvements on the questions, those types of things that, whether they need to be improved or not, but your recommendations based on, because I'm assuming as you're talking to these people, too, you're learning some things that you can help apply to that, too. But since we don't have to worry about that for another year,
I just didn't want to
would that be?
let that slide off, and I did want to say publicly, so then Wendy can remind us of those questions for the task force.
Is that okay, task forcers?
Review.
I'm sorry, to review the questions for the task force? With the task force?
Well, for the task force to consider whether or not it would be good for people to submit written answers to the questions, and whether or not we should ask whether people have watched or attended board commission.
Got that one too, thank you.
Bruce?
I just wanted to
Time's up.
I'll second that.
You're channeling your
Call the question. Oh, did you have something to say?
You have to have an attitude adjustment. I just wanted to probably restate the fact that the folks we ultimately selected in no way diminish the quality of the folks who weren't selected. A lot of these are very close calls and very difficult choices because all of the candidates who applied were of a high quality and a high caliber. And really appreciate everybody taking time to put the app in, and certainly encourage people to, I think we told everyone we'll keep the applications in case there's openings, and certainly encourage people to reapply because it was an exemplary group of citizen volunteers this year.
And I think correct me, Wendy, we send out a letter over Deb's signature to everyone, appreciating their interest and their participation in the process. And it is not without risk, having a household that has experienced it 3 times over, that folks go through a lot of gut-wrenching, even submitting an application, and it's much appreciated on our part, and we very much appreciate the volunteers.
Absolutely.
Did you have something?
Yeah, so,
Okay, go ahead.
so can we incorporate what Bruce said, that we had an exemplary group of people and wish we had openings for everybody?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Jerry?
I just wanted to thank Jimmy John for the sandwich. It was a very good sandwich.
Very good.
I appreciate it.
2 things. One is
Merchant plug.
based on what Phil said a bit. We do send a letter out, and I recently received my appointment from the governor for the urban drainage, and I got a really nice certificate, and it was, Can I see it? Yeah, I'll bring it in.
What do you say? Prove it? Is that what you're?
And it was really nice, and it was it used some of the same phraseology of, that this is an important seat, important position, and thank you for doing what you're about to do. And I think reading it, well, I know it's coming out of the certificate mill at the state, but it also showed to me that it kind of gave me that, wow, this is important to them too, to do this. So I'd like to do something like that more than just a letter. If we could also send a nice certificate. It had a gold seal on it and was signed by the governor. I don't know if he'll sign ours, but I'd happy to sign it. But it just added that extra piece.
I've got a few campaign pictures of myself that I could sign and add it to the envelope.
Sell them on eBay.
So now, if we did that, could we
I don't think so.
fairly easily
You aren't going anywhere
differentiate
with that.
appointment and reappointment?
I think I would do it for
'Cause I haven't
the
seen what it
new
says.
appointees. I don't think I'd do it for reappointments. I don't know. We could do it for all of them. And I don't know if we'd have to differentiate.
Maybe you'd bring show and tell Tuesday night.
Okay.
The reappointments is kind of a big deal because a lot of folks don't make it to term limit. They just decide not to do it. When I was on the planning commission, I was term limited. I think during the course of those about 12 years, I think I served with over 22 different planning commissioners. So there's a lot of folks that don't stay through the whole thing. So I think those that do request to be reappointed, they do keep that history going.
Well, one more argument not to have term limits, because people self-limit themselves.
It happens.
Along the same lines, the people that complete their term, do we give them recognition because we have this group going off right now? And maybe,
At our boards and commissions dinner, they have special recognition.
right, so there could be a match of those two kinds of things, appointment and
When you
completion.
come in and when you go out. And I think as next year, as we do all of the new reappointees, and they are kind of put back in, and it is kind of a start over for everybody, I think it will be great. We can do it with this round too. Once you see the certificate, we can kind of tweak it too. The other thing I just wanted to say in conclusion is, since my term on council, this is probably the most dynamic discussion we've had regarding boards and commissions. It's difficult when you have these citizen volunteers come in and sit here and interview in front of us, and I appreciate all of their time and all of their passion. I mean, we didn't talk to a single person that wasn't passionate about it and didn't want to do this, and so that is just beyond what I think I ever expected the community to do, and it's impressive as heck. And having the dynamic discussion we had, and particularly some of my comments regarding some of the planning commissioner applicants, I think that's part of the process, and I think that the council needs to be honest and open and share their concerns and their feelings. These are important positions. We've seen them go, as Bruce likes to say, upside down in the ditch when we get things wrong or when things don't work out, and we've seen things go to heights we never thought we could get to when we have got everything humming on all cylinders. So it's a process that deserves our honest debate and discussion, and while it may not always be easy, it's definitely beneficial, and I think it brings us a better end product. So thank you for that this evening. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.
Which Bruce said
The bad Bruce.